Let us offer our consecration to the Lord. Lord, we offer up to you this day, and we ask that your name be glorified so that we may continue to be your agents, your ambassadors in the world, that we continue to be the light that shines into the darkness with you shining your light through us. Let us be people who are rooted in our prayer, rooted in living your glory all the days of our life. And we ask this through Christ our Lord. Well, today is, of course, Tuesday. It is the fifth week of Ordinary Time, as we discussed yesterday. And we are obviously in the first week of February. We're February 4th. And we're looking at Genesis. We're continuing to go through Genesis. Now, one of the things I explained to you yesterday is that we see this understanding that God has created all things and they are good, but he's created all things. Therefore, there is no moon god, there is no sun god, there is no sky god, there's no water god. Poseidon doesn't exist, Gaia doesn't exist, Ra doesn't exist. None of these gods exist. Saturn doesn't exist, Mars doesn't exist as gods, but they do exist as planets. And so we understand that this is the prime message of Genesis. It's not that this is how the world was created. It is that this is who created the world. And it may not match how we now believe the world was created, but the message is to the people who have just left Egypt that all those gods that the Egyptians worshipped do not apply because they really don't exist. There is one God. Now, remember this something else. By the way, I got to find a way to stop saying now before every paragraph. But anyway, the other thing to understand is the Hebrews, who later become the Jews, are the only people who worship the one God. And all the other cultures around them have many gods, and many of them engage in human sacrifice. And human sacrifice exists in all cultures, or most cultures anyway, right up until at each culture some force puts an end to it. The Romans put an end to human sacrifice in their empire. We know that there's this big controversy always on the way the Spanish came over to the Americas, and we know all the controversy there, and we know all the issues of slavery and everything else. But we also know that when they and I'm just explaining this. I'm not using this as an excuse or anything like that. When they arrived in the Americas, when they arrived in what is now Mexico, the Aztecs were practicing human sacrifice, as were the Maya. And the Spanish were just incensed by this, and they put an end to it. Unfortunately, they looked at the people at the time as less than human, and that's always an error, because and I'm not going to excuse either culture's behavior, but that's one of the things that happened. So human sacrifice, which fascinates me for this one reason, which I'm going to explain in a second. Human sacrifice was common in many cultures. One of the things that always fascinates me is when cultures that had no contact with each other, none, practice something similar. So there are pyramids in Egypt. There are pyramids in the Americas, in Mexico. There are flood myths, flood stories in every culture in the world, including the Aztecs and the Incas, but they never they never had any kind of contact with the cultures that we know the story of Noah and the flood story comes from. They never did, but they had a flood story too. And there is a growing information from archaeologists that there really was some form of a flood right across the world. I mean, maybe not 100%, but quite a bit of it. And so we understand that there really was a flood. We know for a fact, whether you'd want to call that a flood or not, we know for a fact that there were once swimming over what we now call Kansas. So there is a reality to some of these stories, but they're not historically or even archaeologically accurate, but they are important stories. And the message of these stories is there is one God. There are no other gods. And that one God created the earth, and the earth is good. We understand all that. We look at that, and that's important. And so understanding that, this is the prime message that's being communicated in this part of Genesis. There are no other gods. You now worship the one true God, and that God is the ultimate creator of the world. And remember, the Hebrews considered him so holy to this day, by the way. They would not pronounce his name, and they don't write his name. So these are important things to understand, their reality that there is one God. We're going to talk more on the other side of the break. We'll be right back right after this.
You can now leave a message for us, which we can air and discuss on this program. Just call 617-297-7452.
That's 617-297-7452.
617-297-7452. Feel free to call, leave a comment, a question, or even feedback, and we may play it on the air. I can discuss your comment or question as well, so give that a try.
617-297-7452, 617-297-7452.
I'd like to ask a favor of you, and I'm asking this favor during the month of February. If you would be so kind to say a prayer for this ministry we're doing here, and let us know you're praying for the ministry. I've put in for a couple of grants, and we want to see if we get those grants. We won't know until March. So in light of that, if you would pray for this ministry, I hate to ask for money. And I know that's the thing. I should ask you for money. I should say, hey, look, start, contributing to this. Not that I talk like that, but you see what I'm saying? And there are people that do contribute, and that's important. But I hate to do that. I hate to do that in church, because one of the things I recognize in church is the way to increase our offertory is to increase the number of people who come to church, and that's the original reason for this broadcast, the broadcast. And so I'd ask you to consider that. You can contact us in three ways. We have our phone number, which is 617-297-7452, and leave a message. 617-297-7452. You can email us at producer@catholicaudiomedia.com. That's producer@catholicaudiomedia.com, or hit the contact button at catholicaudiomedia.com, catholicaudiomedia.com, or you can contact us through the website, ST for Saint, so saintanthonyalston.org, so that's stanthonyalston.org, or if you'd like, you can send us a letter. Send it to 43 Holton Street, Holton Street, Allston, Massachusetts, 02134. That's 43 Holton Street, Allston, Massachusetts, 02134. And you can also use that address to come to Mass here on Sunday mornings at 10 o'clock a.m. You can also go to our Brazilian Masses, which are at 8, 11, and 6 p.m. So anyway, we're talking about this powerful message of the reality that God created all these things, and therefore all the animals of the sky, of the sea, and on land were created by God. There are no gods. That's the prime message here. Something else I just thought I'd share with you too, because we know in the evolutionary teaching that things coming from evolution, and we as Catholics accept that. That's fine. We do not believe you have to believe in young Earth creationism, or for that matter, geocentrism. But what we do believe is that God created all things, and we see that in Genesis. Well, notice that how do the animals come on land? They leave the waters and they come on land, which is exactly what evolution teaches. So kind of an interesting to keep in mind. There is a parallel there. The other thing you can see is then God creates humankind. Now, I'd like to look at the original translation, and maybe I should, because it says, let us make humankind in our image. The concept of the Trinity, which would make that grammatically correct, doesn't exist until after Jesus resurrects from the dead. Actually doesn't exist until Pentecost. So I'd like to know if that was the original translation, and maybe before I do tomorrow's program, I'll look up at least the Latin translation, see what I can do. But that's fascinating because you understand that we're focused on God singular, but we have God plural, and we don't believe in three gods. We believe in three persons who form the one God. There is a discussion that we had when we were talking about Eucharistic amazement on the other program on WROL at 3 p.m. With Father Randy Stice, and he explains that the saints understood that when one person in the Trinity acts, all three are acting at the same time. So when we see Jesus, we can see him as the second person of the Trinity, but he also said the Father and I are one. So we understand that when we see one person of the Trinity acting, we're actually seeing three. At least the action is done by three, as Father Randy L. Stice explained to us. So we understand all that, and then we understand this plurality here grammatically, but we realize that God at the time of the Hebrews, when they are first understanding this, understood God as God, not as a plural. So it's a fascinating thing to look at. Anyway, we're going to talk more about this tomorrow, but in the meantime, have yourself a blessed day. We will see you tomorrow, and we'll learn more from the book of Genesis. See you then.
I want to call your attention to Catholic TV, which offers great faith-filled, family-friendly programming 24 hours a day. You can find your cable channel at www.getcatholictv.com, and you can watch online on the free apps or check out the YouTube channel. Daily Mass, Rosaries, the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and the Our Lady of Perpetual Help Novena are all available online and on demand. Check out CatholicTV.com. If you're searching for a meaningful spiritual experience, look no further than St. Anthony's Parish in Allston, Massachusetts. Join us at 43 Holton Street in between Soldiers Field Road and the Mass Pike. Immerse yourself in the complete St. Anthony's Parish encounter through our 10 o'clock a.m. chanted Mass. Whether you're a Catholic seeking a parish to call home or someone looking for spiritual guidance, our welcoming community is here for you. Visit our website at www.stanthonyalston.org for more information. St. Anthony's Parish, where faith finds a home.